Oh, well, Bart has to go. I hope he didn't have to get this bad with it.
Good evening. Is there anyone here that would like to offer up a prayer before the meeting begins? All right,
Woo, good, Carol.
let's stand for a moment of silence / prayer and the pledge. Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome to the May 15th, 2019 workshop. Items for individual consideration, staffing allocation plan. Ms. Joseph, Mr. Stallnaker.
Madam Chair, on our last meeting, May 6th, one of the things that was on discussion was the staff and allocation manual, and I just assumed this position, and so I needed some time to look over it. But since then, the district staff and I have reviewed the suggested allocation staff allocation manual, and at this time we're ready to present it to you. Mr. Stallnaker will explain it to you in detail.
Thank you, Ms. Joseph.
Madam Chairman, you should have hard copies of the packet, and I believe that as we go through this, if you have questions or concerns, we'll try to address those. Start off with elementary school. At the top, for Greenville, Land Pinetta, we're saying one principal, a part-time curriculum coordinator, and a part-time MTSF. If you notice with the curriculum coordinator, there'll be 0.5 curriculum coordinator if they have 175 or more students. And then all schools will have a 0.5 MTSS. And one school secretary, one head custodian, and one base paraprofessional. And food service is addressed later in the food service part at the end of it. You can go back to make sure. Yes, the food service is at the end. But each school will have one cafeteria manager. So I do need to add that in.
And the funding source for the food services.
Yes. Any questions?
No, just to clarify, the curriculum coordinator, 10 months, and the MTSS, that's one position, one person, correct? Just letting you know. And MTSS is a multi-tier support system,
That is correct.
just so for your information.
Just to clarify at Greenville, since they don't have 175 students, the other half of that person is their BSC support facilitation person. Looking at Greenville, the central school.
Well, let's go back to the elementary schools for just a minute. As far as the extent, would you give us some information about extending the hours, just as much information as you know right now, Ms. Joseph?
The principals are asking to extend for additional hours for that MTS person. They wanted to do additional paperwork because they maintain folders on the students, and they want some additional hours for the MTSS person to do that during the summer.
How is it looking right now as far as funding?
Right now, we have not identified a funding source for that request, and we have not added it to the agenda.
Okay,
We're still looking for a funding source.
okay, thank you for the update.
Madam Chairman, if I may, further add to that, Greenville and Lehigh requested 20 hours each. The Central School requested 20 hours. The high school requested 80 hours for 2 people.
Thank you.
And currently, right now, I'm able to find the general fund. Going to the Central School, you have one principal. You have 2 APs that are 10 plus 2. You have one curriculum coordinator, which is 11 month. You have 2 deans that are 10 month. One guidance counselor that is 11 month. We have 2 guidance secretaries and students.
Okay, we are requesting 2 guidance secretaries for Central School because we would be reducing the guidance counselor. That's one you request, to reduce the guidance counselor. But the student numbers are still there, and their duties will be split up. One will be dealing with guidance, and the other will be doing the MIS and making sure the records and everything are maintained properly.
There it is. That's right.
That's why we said we could do without the 2 counselors, but the 2 secretaries would still be necessary, and that would be at a reduced cost.
There's been so many
Thank
things
you.
going on since we reviewed this. We have listed one guidance secretary, and the second one is right below that, Secretary MIS.
And that she will be working with the guidance council, directly with the guidance council.
Thank you.
And they have one MTSS RTI, which is a 10-month person, and that's based off of 750 to 1,200 students. One media specialist, one media paraprofessional, one school secretary, one bookkeeper, one attendance clerk, one receptionist clerk, one head custodian, one base paraprofessional, one virtual lab para, and instructional support ISS para. And as with other schools, I need to add a cafeteria manager below that.
Any questions for Mr. Stallnaker?
I have a question concerning the attendance clerk and receptionist clerk. Are they in line with what the high schools are?
Yes, we'll get to that in just a moment. We'll be able to see it too.
Well, the question I have, you don't have the months beside the ones through pre-K through 8, but you do beside the high school.
The attendance clerk at Central School and the reception clerk, those are listed as 10 months.
I see what you're talking about. The receptionist clerk at the high school is 11 month, but the other 2 clerks are 10 month. Okay, that answer your question, Mr. Alton?
Yes.
On the high school, you have one principal, one assistant principal, which is 10 plus 2. We're adding a dean, as well as a curriculum coordinator. The curriculum coordinator is 11 months. You see the guidance counselor. They have one guidance counselor for 351 to 749. If they get to 2750 to 1,000, it's at the board's discretion to add the second guidance counselor. Media specialist, the secretary guidance, secretary MIS, school secretary, bookkeeper, head custodian, attendance clerk, receptionist clerk, and receptionist clerk, career center, distance learning. That is the, currently it is just a career center. Since we're adding distance learning to the high school, that would be part of that one person's duties. It's not a new position, it's just adding to her duties. And then a base para, virtual lab para, instructional support para for ISS, And I need to add, cafeteria manager.
All right, let me ask you about you got the principal, assistant principal. Now the dean, did you say that was a new position?
Today, yes, because we did cut one assistant principal from the high school.
Okay, well, now what about a dean / curriculum coordinator? Would that work?
Looking at the amount of discipline that's involved at the school, and since you're cutting the high school and AP, personally, I don't think so.
How do you feel about that, Ms. Joseph?
With what we're presenting to you is in line with what we have outlined for the central school. And we are cutting it, we are cutting an AP, but we are putting in a dean, we're putting in a curriculum coordinator. Those duties are kind of different, and it'll be kind of hard to, it won't be hard, you could mesh them together, but to keep some similarity between the schools and some equity between the schools, I feel that what we presented would be the best fit.
So in looking at our, I have the prior allocation, and looking at that, we had an assistant principal for curriculum. So in essence, you did have, I mean, in essence, you still have 2 APs. You're just changing the name from assistant principal of curriculum to curriculum coordinator.
That's what it looks like.
And so you still basically have the 2 APs and you're adding a dean. I mean, in reality, if you compare it to the allocation we had
One key thing
a few months ago.
It is on an instructional salary schedule. There's no vacation days earned, the only benefits other than being an instructional salary schedule is one additional month's salary and one additional day of sick leave that the person may earn.
What is the enrollment at the high school?
Roughly, it's around 500.
Whenever this last allocation was done, it was 537.
I think that's why I question it, because Central's got 1,000 or a little more than 1,000, and the high school is half the students. I would think the assistant principals would take up the discipline also, but that's just, how do the rest of the board members feel about this?
Ms. Becky, do we by chance have a copy of the previous allocation plan?
Absolutely.
So according to the previous allocation plan, staff and allocation plan, we're adding a person.
We would be adding a position, but we will only be adding a 10-month position, and we will be reducing the administrator.
You're just moving that administrator to the dean position, that's 10 months.
Yes.
So
We are adding a person. We were reducing the AP to a curriculum coordinator to 11 months, removing.
And adding a dean.
And adding a dean, so that is adding a person.
It is adding a person.
One big issue is one principal and one AP doing all the observations and instructional leadership and having to do the discipline as well. It's going to be a tough challenge for those 2 people to do that.
There's not a, who is doing it now? We don't have a dean out there now.
I have 2 APs.
But one of them is still gonna be there, but listed as curriculum coordinator.
But Ms. Joseph said that job is different.
But the APs was also doing curriculum coordinating before you had this curriculum coordinating position.
What we are recommending, if we label a person as a curriculum coordinator, they would not be allowed. If we label, as I have presented to you, they would not be able to do observations, evaluations. How I have presented, as a curriculum coordinator, they could not do evaluations, staff evaluations.
I just can't quite get the grip on if we're down number of students, why there's an extra person, I don't care what they're labeled at.
Current staffing plan is behind you, Mr. Next. Oh, hang on, that's essential.
Did you want the past one or the current one?
The current.
That's in this, isn't it? This is a current.
Okay.
On that plan, they're allowed for 2 APs and no curriculum coordinator and no dean. That's the plan we're on presently.
So that's 3 people,
Yes, that's
and now
what
it's
we are
gonna be
presently.
4 people. A dean, curriculum coordinator, an AP, and a principal. 4 when it was 3. Because we're really waiting on Mr. Barnes to get us some numbers to see if we're still gonna have to do any cuts or not. I don't know if we should be adding people.
What bothers me is the enrollment, the decline in enrollment. I mean, I've heard we actually have less than 500 students out there. I read it somewhere here lately that was 490 some.
Well, yeah, because you got some of the dual enrollment kids that aren't there very much.
The high school didn't have a curriculum coordinator, right, Ms. Joseph?
No, this present year, they do not have a curriculum coordinator, neither do they have
A dean.
a dean.
So what you're doing is taking an AP, putting them down to a dean, and
No.
adding a curriculum coordinator, is that correct?
Backwards. You're taking the
We're
AP,
taking-
putting them to the curriculum coordinator and adding a dean.
That's basically what we are suggesting. And what I'm hearing from the board is that we are unsure of our finances and we are asking to add. And so you're concerned about adding that. And could we possibly consolidate this position? Is that what I'm hearing?
That was an idea that I had.
I mean,
It was a thought.
Yeah, it's just one board member.
Do you feel that we need a curriculum coordinator and the dean? Would it benefit our students?
I can tell you, when Ms. Gann was there as a CTE director, she helped with curriculum as well. She helped take some of the load off of Ms. Hill, so she wouldn't have to be out there all the time to do that.
The general funds is important, but I want our students to have what they need. If you feel like that is needed, we need to put that in place if necessary. If Mr. Andy could say, we'll be okay with that.
So who was in clarification in my mind, who was the AP that was AP for curriculum last year?
That's the one they didn't fill. They had a teacher on special assignment for that position. One AP was teacher on special assignment, and the other one was Ms. Williams.
Get us in trouble though, going down in number and adding people.
And let's remember something, no matter how our finances look, we want to run an
Right.
efficient, it's nice to have a lot of people on board. But even if I had a lot of money, I'm only going to spend what I need to spend. And of course, the students are important, their needs are going to be taken care of. But let's not think, well, we have a lot of money, now we can go ahead and spend it.
Right, but I just want to make sure our students have what they need.
Well, they will definitely have what they need, but we have to make sure we have money for us to continue having a school system.
That's
Right,
right.
well, how can we adequately or properly make those decisions then if we haven't heard from the fiscal chief?
Yes, sir.
Would you like me to address y'all? Or-
Yes, sir.
Just check up here. I don't know how this is done. It's been a while. Sorry. It rang and it's still ringing. Wow, sorry, y'all.
It got
Will y'all back?
fixed.
Is it? Am I good? Okay. Right now, it's still too early to tell. There is, my first full Friday where I'll be able to work with district staff and actually spend time with everybody and ask the questions that I need to ask will be this Friday. So I'm hoping I'll have a clearer picture. My intention is to come here, report first thing in the morning, spend the morning in the finance office, and then spend the afternoon with district staff, with the leadership. We will need this settled before I can start building your budget, because I'll be building your budget based on your staffing allocation plan. What I will say is if you did my understanding is that you currently do have a hiring freeze in place. So even if you put the position on there, they couldn't fill it anyway, because unless you're going to make an internal move. But if you're adding a position, you wouldn't be able to fill it under a hiring freeze at this time. So this discussion is, it's helpful, but I don't know that it really has. I think you guys could agree on what it is to staff the schools appropriately philosophically right now, and still not have an impact, because again, you're under a hiring freeze. You couldn't actually fill a position or fill a vacancy at this time anyway, without going through the board and getting approval to do that. So I'm kind of in agreement. I'm not a program person. I'm not an instructional person, so I don't know. I couldn't speak intelligently on what it takes to actually fill and staff the school appropriately. That's for Ms. Joseph and your instructional staff and program staff. But fiscally, I don't think there would be any impact on what if you guys made a decision to add the position this evening and then just not fill it until we know really what our budget can afford for next year.
You don't want to start filling positions and a month later you got to make cuts.
Exactly.
So that's not fair to the people that you put into the position.
And that's what your hiring freeze is in place now for. So right now you couldn't offer anybody a position because you have a hiring freeze, unless that's my understanding of what the hiring freeze is there for. So your staffing allocation plan is basically that. It's basically to create a model for what's ideal to run the school district and run the schools, again, with your district leadership. And then at that point, we'll come back with a fiscal plan and a planned budget for you for next year, and say that we can or cannot fund it, and then you'll adjust from there. But your plan, and I explained this to Mr. Stallnaker and some of the others and some of the other district leadership in the past. When we would do the allocation manual or the allocation plan, there was a reason why it wasn't touched since 2013 or 2014. It's because it's really a model for what's going to drive your staffing tables. Your tables are what's updated incrementally as you go through the year. So basically, whenever you have the number of students that are counted, that's what will drive your tables, and that's what you'll allow the district to actually hire to. So that's my understanding of how that's worked that was how it worked whenever I was here before, and my understanding of how it would probably work going forward. But so I'll kind of leave it there and kind of see if y'all have any questions.
Answer my question.
Thank you, Mr. Barnes.
Thank you.
So from what I'm hearing from Mr. Barnes, we could agree to it, and then based upon the money at that point, we could decide not to fill it or to fill it based upon what we see from what he presents to us.
We would be agreeing for the position to be there. Then it would have to come back to the board,
Right.
depending on the money and the funds, whether we fill that position.
Right.
Because I don't want to fill something with somebody and then
Right.
a month later have to make a cut. That's not.
But you say that we're on a hiring freeze, so it won't affect us right now. But if we could go ahead and put it on the staff allocation table, if the money's there, then we could go forward from there, whether or not we want to fill that position.
Yeah, the hiring freeze is, am I correct then, there is a hiring freeze in
There
place?
is, yes.
So you're not filling any vacant positions right now. So again, whatever this plan says or whatever these tables say is basically what we'll try to build a budget to. And if we can afford it, then at that point, we would say, well, yes, there's money to do this. Would you lift the hiring freeze for position X, position Y, position Z, and then move forward from there? I'm looking at Ms. Joseph to make sure that's in agreement with how she wants to proceed too.
Okay. If we are officially within a hiring freeze, is that official?
Yes, it is.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
any position we wish to fill, we have to do a request to fill that position, put the form, and request it from the board formally.
So even if it's on the table, each position still comes to you individually for approval. So again, going back and forth and spending a lot of time over the manual and all this stuff, that's really for them to tell you what is appropriate to run the district at that point. Now, if you agree or disagree with that, that's open for discussion, but money probably is not the number one driver in that decision. It's more, because you've got that handled with the hiring freeze.
Thank you, Andy.
Thank you, Mr. Barnes.
With their hiring freeze, I support what we're presenting to you.
Okay.
Mr. Stallnaker?
Any other question on the high school? Next is the district staff. You want me to go through each of these positions or entertain your questions as you read through? I hate to insult your intelligence with the reading part.
Go ahead, go through each one.
First one, superintendent, and you got the confidential secretary. Everything is one each. You also identified the funding source. Identified the funding sources to those positions. You got the CFO, the assistant CFO, accounts payable, payroll, benefits, network manager, one each. You got the chief human capital officer, one confidential secretary for personnel specialist, the director of ESC and student services, your ESC receptionist clerk, your secretary for ESC, your part-time secretary. You got staffing specialists, you have 3. That's assigned at NCHS, James Madison, the Central School, Excel School, MCAA, and DJJ. You have 1 lead pre-K teacher.
I have a question. On our previous staff and allocation plan, that position wasn't on there.
The lead pre-K teacher?
Right.
Okay, I went back and checked that particular individual when that person was hired. She was hired and recommended as a lead pre-K teacher in 2004.
But she hasn't been doing that job,
She's been
though.
listed
She's
as
been
a
doing her
staffing
job.
specialist.
It's lead pre-K according to the job description, lead pre-K/staffing.
Okay, I've got something here that was given to me on January 21st, 2019. This person is listed as a staffing specialist.
Okay.
And this wasn't the first time it's been listed. And the duties that she's been performing have been staffing specialist. So we need some clarification on this.
The duties that she does the pre-K for Greenville,
Right.
Lee, and Pinetta School.
What does she
pre-K
do
what?
there?
Staffing?
What does she do there?
Can you help me, Ms. Newman?
She does, she oversees all our pre-K programs on site as far as evaluations, eligibility, screenings, staffings, IEPs, helps oversee VPK programs at all schools.
So she doesn't do any staffing?
Yes,
Well,
yes, but I mean, what Mr. Stallnaker just said was the job description that was created for that position back in 2004 said lead pre-K teacher/staffing. And that job description has everything this and that does, and then also we've updated it to reflect all the new stuff that has come since 2004, like RTI and TSS, all the staffing specialists are responsible for 504s, gifted, and as well as new now mental health stuff. They're helping require to do all that stuff.
So why was she listed as a staffing specialist then?
I'm
Well,
not sure.
from what I'm saying,
That was before both.
from what I'm hearing you
This was
say,
January 21st.
in 2004, she was listed as lead pre-K teacher staffing.
That's what she was hired as, yes.
So I assume that is staffing specialist, or why would they put staff in there?
I feel like we're disrespecting that person for what she's been doing.
Well, she's done it since
She's
2004.
been doing it for 15 years, and now we're saying she hasn't been doing it.
No, that's not what I'm thinking.
And, you know, this is new to me right here, this lead pre-K teacher, because
Well, if what it says in the minutes when we hired her back in 2004 was lead pre-K teacher / staffing, then it should say that here. I mean, it should be classified as a staffing specialist here. I mean, what have we classified her as? If we look back if Ms. Bishop pulls back a year ago, 2 years ago, when she was hired back, she wasn't hired back as a lead pre-K teacher, it was staffing specialist. I mean, if we look at the minutes back from 5 years ago, 6 years ago, I guarantee that if it is lead pre-K teacher, it still says staffing specialist.
Most of the time, when you recommend an employee, like if it's coming in, it just puts their names, it doesn't list their position, it just lists the name.
Again, I think we need to ask Mr. Reeves about this, because this
Well, you
gets
still have 4 people doing staffing, no matter
There's
what
still-
their label is.
It boils
You've got
down, there's 4
people doing
staffing specialists, 5 positions, 4 staffing specialists. Because they're all doing staffing. No comment, please, from the public.
So we have 4 staffing specialists. Is she
We have
considered
4
a
staffing
lead?
specialists.
She's doing lead pre-K and staffing.
So really, her job is required to do, she's doing 2 jobs. So really, we have 3 full-time staffing specialists and 1 person that is part-time staffing specialist and lead teacher. Is that
No.
correct?
no,
Not quite like that.
it's a title.
We all do a lot more on our job descriptions than our title.
Right.
It's not what happens. Our girls are doing a lot more.
The study that was just recently done, they said that our ESE department was running sufficiently. And it's, everything about our ESE department is grant funded. So
Is
if,
that what you read?
yeah,
What mine said.
that's what I read.
Well, the bottom line, in fairness to this employee,
Bring it on out now.
if it said,
But not
if
knowing
it said
that-
in 2004, lead pre-K teacher, staff / staffing, I feel that we need to still honor that. I mean, it's not fair to her. This is,
I think it's disrespectful to her.
well, it is.
Because she's been doing it, now we're saying she's not doing it. In other words, she hasn't been doing it all these years?
No, she has.
This is
She's
what,
still doing it.
and she's still doing it.
She's still doing it. I mean,
So we're gonna change the name to lead teachers / staffing specialist?
If I can elaborate a little bit,
She's
please.
not gonna be doing anything she hasn't already been doing. And she's been doing staffing and the pre-K.
This particular person has, if I remember correctly, she's got a master's in curriculum instruction. Her job description does not require the ESE certification like a regular staffing specialist does. So it's a completely different group. I can show you the job description, and I can also show you her recommendation sheet when she was recommended in 2004 to that particular job description.
but with that being said, staffing in pre-K ESE students she is doing that, and she's done it for this many years.
Correct.
So I don't know that we can, in midstream, when someone's been doing a job successfully, say, oh, we're changing the criteria, and you're going to do this now. I mean, she's had the job for this amount of years. Again, I think this is a question for Mr. Reeves. I don't know that you can just switch stuff like this on people.
I'm not sure what we're changing.
You're changing her title. I mean, you're taking away part of the title.
Would you like, if I could, if it appeases the board, I could put staffing beside the title.
Well, isn't that what she does? That's what she's been doing all these years.
Okay?
I mean,
And that's the job description.
I want beside her title what we hired her in as. If we hired her in as lead pre-K teacher / staffing,
The recommendation sheet.
that needs to be there, not just lead pre-K teacher.
And going back to the study that was done, that there be a maximum of 3 staffing specialists for the district, 1 primary and 1 secondary. Dr. Pickles had this study done.
It didn't
It
say,
said 1 primary, 1 secretary, the max 3.
In other words, you could do 2, but a maximum of 3.
And it referenced some other things about needing a set schedule instead of an open schedule. I mean, everything wasn't
Yeah, have you?
Those are
We've all been
recommendations,
given this, yes, This was,
just recommendations.
right.
But if it's grant funded and it's coming out of a grant, and all of our kids and all of our students are being served,
And they will continue to be served.
and our main concern now basically is.
That's where the resources should be, in the classroom,
In the
serving the
classroom.
children.
Ms. Newman,
Yes, ma'am.
do we need the 4 staffing specialists?
Yes, ma'am, we do. We have some things coming up in the new year that is gonna even put more work, because we had 5, but we lost Nicole, and we're not filling that. We've got a new charter school opening that will have students with some pretty significant intensive special needs. We've just got a lot of things coming up with the behavior, the mental health. We spend a lot of our day working with our schools on counseling and mental health all day long.
Maybe that's a position we need to consider, a mental health specialist.
Well, you wouldn't have to because you already have the folks doing it as part of their job. So we wouldn't be adding a person, they've already absorbed that position, those duties.
Well, it would take some duties off of them if we had a mental health specialist come on board. That's a possibility.
But Ms. Newman just said that they absorbed
IDEA
it.
could not fund that. IDEA could not fund it.
Well, if they're overburdened, we need to take some of the responsibilities
I
off.
didn't say they were overburdened. I said our staffing specialists are, we need them full because they are working and diligently to make sure our students get what they need. I never said anybody was overburdened. I think they're doing a fabulous job.
But the mental health portion, y'all just absorbed it into y'all responsibilities.
Yes,
Do we get funding for mental health? Don't we
do,
get,
but it cannot be used on personnel. It has to be used on direct services to students.
you had made mention of a new charter school. What charter school is that? Because we,
And, the DJJ company Toga has a new, they're just supposed to be receiving their license for TCF, opening up a TCF residential facility that will house students with some pretty significant needs as far as special ed and criminal.
Ms. Joseph, this is the first that we've heard of this, so, I mean,
About this new school. I heard of it last week and they are still in negotiations about it. I mean, it's not concrete. Am I correct on that?
Mr. Killingsworth, yeah, they received the charter several, February or March, the Paula and Karen did, and, they've been reviewing it. They've sent it back for edits, and then it should come back before the board. If there's a residential facility, now they can do what they want to with that property they own it, so they're working with DCF. But what they've done is submitted a charter application so that then they can teach the students on site and not them have to come to our school. But that is going through, but we would still be their LEA where we would be required, just like our other 2 charter schools, to provide special needs services to them, IEPs, things like that.
Well, I'm like you, I didn't just hear about it, but I just heard about it last week and they were in negotiations with fine tuning it and it wasn't finalized at the point that it had been brought to the board. I don't know whether you have been apprised
We
of the
haven't.
original
I haven't.
part of it or not.
I haven't. I understand that everyone has a lot to do, and the issue we're going back to is even like with that new thing that's coming, the new charter that's coming on or allegedly coming on, no one, I mean, I haven't been told that. None of us have been told. And then last week we find out that Excel suddenly is back at the high school. We didn't know that. And again, we need to know how that's going to impact
The recommendation.
us in making these recommendations of how, of us to move forward.
Mr. Stallnaker, who is the team leader at pre-K?
At the central school?
Yes,
Lawanda Jennings.
Luana?
Lawanda Jennings.
Not sure.
Now,
Lawanda.
Luanda? Okay, so she's the team leader. And what does a pre-K lead teacher do? Let's see, this is the qualifications here. Because I noticed that she was hired as a pre-K lead teacher / staffing specialist, so she is a staffing
Because
specialist.
this doesn't have, you don't do staffing. With this job description, it doesn't. It still comes down that we have 4 people doing staffing.
Well, I guess we need to get a better idea of what, I understand what Ms. Newman's saying. If we have this other residential place coming in that has all these exceptionalities, and with Excel now being at the high school, which that should be a little bit easier that they're all under one roof. But again, we as a board need to know better of what's going on. This is some dangerous territory of us not being told stuff and it being just sprung on us. And I'm not blaming Miss Joseph by any means, because it was sprung on her also, but.
I appreciate you not blaming me.
I'm not blaming you.
But back to the Excel, I mean, we knew nothing of that. And with this possible residential facility that's coming, that is something that I haven't heard about. That could be a possibility. And again, that is going to create more work for the staffing specialists. But again, we can't operate on what could be. It has to be definitive and us have specific numbers, just like Mr. Oliva said when he was going over the budget. We need numbers and what it's going to be at these schools.
We don't know we can't predict what's going to happen in the
Right.
future, if they'll be here, if it'll happen, if it'll get
Well, like I
approved.
said, I got off the phone with Nicole, who now works for them, 10 minutes before we walked over. They get their first student tomorrow, living there. So she was letting me know that. Now, we only have a week of school left, and they don't have their charter. So they're not gonna be as far as enrolled in school. However, they get their first lit student living there tomorrow.
But I thought that a facility, when they were going to do a charter, they had to come before the board.
We are reviewing their charter application, and we've sent it back to them. And once we review it and it's set, then we send the charter to you guys to approve.
But you would agree that we should be apprised of what's going on earlier in the process, though. You agree?
We're just in the early stages of it.
I mean, we're just hearing about it tonight is what we're saying.
Right, and we can't.
I understand what you're
make plans on
saying,
things that
y'all
aren't
negotiating behind the
definitive.
scenes and all of that. That's important.
Go ahead.
I understand that, but I'm just
Go ahead, Mr.
saying,
Daniels.
you have to understand our position, man. When we get this type of, these bombshells, it doesn't look good. It just doesn't look good when we show up to these meetings and we hear of these big-time deals being done behind the scenes. It just doesn't look good, man.
I agree with Mr. Daniels, and the other thing that we can't do is that we think this is going to happen, we think this might be, we have to go on exactly what's now. If these things come to fruition, then we can add more. You can always go and say, this came in, we're going to have to add somebody. But
Obviously,
we
it must
can't
be
sit here
further
and
along.
say, it might come,
Right.
let's add somebody.
If they're bringing a student in tomorrow, it must be further along than what we're being told. I
Well,
mean,
no, that's the DCF side.
Excuse me. Mr. Stallnaker, you can address the question.
Like Ms. Newman said, it's a DCF facility. It's a DCF project. And these children, according to what I understand, because I don't deal with charter schools, okay? But according to what I understand, these children will be significant enough that most likely will prohibit them from coming on our campuses. Without going into great detail, I can't do that. I'm not in an open forum. I can do that with you individually.
But that's not a definite thing though, right?
it's definitely coming there. We just have to, either we approve, it's essentially the way I understand it, either if we don't approve the charter, we're gonna have to figure out a way to school them. Because from the way I understand it, they already have the contract to host the facility. They're on the TOBA site in Greenville.
Any other questions for Mr. Stalnaker?
I just ask that in the future that anytime that we have someone who makes a recommendation or a request for a charter, that we find out about it as soon as it happens, not that all the
Okay.
stuff is done behind the scenes and then it's sprung on us in a meeting by someone in the audience and we know nothing about it. I mean,
We'll take care of that.
that's
The
not,
application came in, we started reviewing the application. I don't even remember when the application first came in, but that's not an issue. We'll work through that and take care of that.
I mean, in all reality, it sounds like they're so severe, and so if we don't approve it, then I don't know that it'll be cost effective for us to even try to manage it. I mean, we're hearing bits, I mean, I don't know what.
Mr. Alford, with all due respect, I certainly understand, just in respect of those students. Can we?
I'm not asking about the students and their
I
exceptionality.
understand.
I'm wanting to know when something like this occurs, we need to know in the preliminary that it's a possibility, not when it's about to happen and we're having to see about more personnel for it.
Okay.
Mr. Stalnaker, can we just one-on-one meet with you or whoever else is involved and we can discuss it?
Absolutely.
And then you can know more information.
We can coordinate you.
Yes, sir.
Or any of the board members with the ones that's over to charter school and they can explain what's happening, what's going on, and what's not.
Yes, sir.
Again, I just want to know when a charter has asked to come in here.
Okay.
I do not need to know who's coming in. That's not what my issue is, that I feel that we as a board should have been told immediately when this was a possibility how this could affect us.
Okay.
Just like when at Excel, when it was decided that the school was going to be closed down and we did not find out until Ms. Hill spoke the other night at the board meeting. Again, the ramifications of that with the grades at the high school and central school could be huge.
Well, the issue with the Excel, the kids are already on, unless I'm totally wrong, those kids are already counted in the central school and high school grades now because they brought them back. And the contract, the rite of passage is a one-year contract. And we have to renew that contract and we have to notify rite of passage within 30 days of the time that contract expires. So that's why we have it on the agenda for Monday to talk about it in greater detail.
And I understand that, but I guess the point I'm making is, as a board member, at what point were we going to be privileged to that information? That it had been shut down. I mean, I think that we should have been told immediately and what was happening, not sprung on us at the meeting. Unless I'm misunderstanding what was told to us the other night.
Again, Mr. Alford, I can't attest to who the individuals that was over alternative ed and responsible for rite of passage in Excel school earlier in the year as this process was going through. I can't understand or can't explain why you weren't provided that information. All I can do is provide you the information to the point that I have it at this day.
The question I have concerning that is I guess the point I'm trying to get to is, did people in the district know and just not the board, or did no one know?
Someone must have known.
I mean, did other people in the district office know it and just not the board?
I'm not sure of your question.
Okay, the other night when Ms. Hill said what she said, was it a surprise to everyone, or did everyone else know it and we just not know?
You're talking about the Excel school receiving a failing grade?
Right.
I believe that was posted in the newspaper back in January, early fall sometime.
I never remember seeing that.
I think when they did the school grades, I think that information was posted. But again, I can't attest to why you weren't provided that information at an earlier date.
But back to this pre-K lead teacher, what led into all this. Based upon the personal recommendation from Ms. Waldrop and Ms. Guest back in 7/12/04, it was pre-K lead teacher / staffing specialist. So that's what she was hired in as.
And I could change that to make it match exactly to what the recommendation sheet has.
And it should be that, because that's what she was hired
That's what she's been doing, I was assuming, all these years.
Okay. Now, just like I mentioned, you do have the job description. Just please note the difference between this job description and the actual ESE staffing specialist job description. The ESE staffing specialist job description requires the ESE certification. That's the one major significant difference between the two.
So she hasn't been staffing any ESE students?
That's where she,
Yes, she
I mean, in
has.
other words, she's
All the
doing
pre-K.
it, but
Right.
you're saying she's not qualified to do it.
Well, when she was originally hired, from what I understand back in 2004, they did not require the ESE certification for that job.
Well, maybe she was grandfathered in then.
That's what I'm saying, she had to have been.
So she's been grandfathered in.
I would,
Okay, but that's what she's been doing, though.
That's what she does.
That's what she does. That's what she, we know what she does. Anyone who's been around here long enough knows what she does.
correct.
this is a question for Mr. Reeves, but I would think since she's been doing the job and we hired her back in '04 to do this job and she's done it successfully, then she would stay classified as that. If she decided to leave the job and this job became open, then I assume that the next person that we hired would have to meet the qualifications of that. But I would assume that she's grandfathered in based upon the years that she's been in that position.
And like you said, she's done a very good job for the
I mean,
district.
she's had good evaluations. If she didn't, then you can make a point there. But again, I don't know that,
But let's not pretend that she's something else when she's doing.
well, she's not,
You know-
based upon Ms. Waldrop and Ms. Guess's personnel recommendation in '04.
And I'm wondering why this was even put down here. I don't understand that, you know, what? So basically, do we have 4 staffing specialists then?
We had said 3.
We have 4.
You have a lead pre-K teacher / staffing specialist and the 3 others.
And the 3 others? Okay, Mr. Stallmaker?
We have the curriculum coordinator, network manager, which is going away, and we would like to, we talked about reclassifying that previously. It's going away in December. Secretary to virtual home and district administrative assistant. When the assessment secretary resigned, we moved that position up to the front desk and added some more duties to that. The reading coach is paid out of the reading allocation. We put that on the district staffing table.
And that's an 11-month position rather than a 10-month position, the reading coach.
And I corrected that. Thank you, Ms. Joseph. We have the coordinator of assessments, accountability and adult ed, coordinator of safety and operational services, coordinator of special programs, administrative specialist technician / benefits, migrant program, homeless liaison, adult ed truancy monitor, the position we just worked on. We didn't create, we just worked on it to make it more fundable. Supervisor of food service, secretary of food service, warehouse delivery, supervisor of maintenance, secretary of maintenance, secretary of, look at the secretary of maintenance, 0.5. And the Secretary of Transportation, 0.5, that shows where we consolidated those 2 positions. And then you got the Supervisor of Transportation. Anything on the second page? Yes, we do have the 2 mechanics on the next page. On your page, should be at the bottom of your page, but it's on my second page. And if I can make it fit on one page, I'll do that.
So do we currently have 3 maintenance technicians on staff? Currently?
Yes. Actually, that maintenance technician, that's 3.5. Thank you. That should be a 3 because we have 2.5 mechanics.
Let me ask you about the mechanics, just because this has been brought to my attention. Are they able to work on the buses and do whatever the buses need?
As much as possible, yes, ma'am.
Because you've got 2.5 of them, right? Are
Correct.
they full-fledged mechanics? I mean, we don't do, in other words, we're not sending buses off to get work done.
I'm not saying that because our shop is not capable to do everything that a bus may need.
So the shop limits us then?
Correct. They do everything within the confines of our shop that they're physically capable to do at our shop.
Because I've been actually questioned on
There's a
this.
lot of things that the bus shop can't do. For one thing, they don't have a lift.
They don't
And the
have a lift.
building's not tall enough
Right.
for a lift.
Right.
We don't have a lift, nor do we have a pit. to get
I
our
wonder
lift.
how much money we actually spend on this, though, sending buses off, and if it would behoove us to get what we need to do it here. Maybe Mr. Barnes can help us with that.
That's a
later.
question that-
I know, I'm not sure about how much money this involves or what.
There's a specific line item in the budget that gets charged to, and that should be fairly easy to figure out. I'll add that to the list.
Thank you, Mr. Barnes. I mean, different ones have questioned this, and I don't know, so I'm just asking.
Correct. You know, as I think about the mechanic, we have a half-time mechanic down there. And the other half-time, I believe he drives a bus. If you remember correctly, we lost a mechanic to an illness. So actually that would, I got so many things going on. 'Cause I think we have three. We have the two that are currently working full-time, the part-time mechanic, and the other half that we could not fill because we couldn't find a viable candidate. If you remember us having such discussions, so that technically is a 3 and not a 2.5. So, yes, half of it is not filled. Only half is filled according to staff.
Half of the third one is not.
Correct.
Right.
That is absolutely correct.
Right. And I know we can only pay so much, a mechanic so much, that probably is part of the
Right,
problem.
if you remember correct, if you remember back in late last year, summertime, we had a mechanic hired, we just couldn't, a certified mechanic, we just couldn't match the salary.
Yeah.
Sam, do we still have one of our mechanics that's certified inspectors?
The part-time mechanic, the one that's working part-time, is working on his certification, and that's part of the requirement when we got him in there.
So who's doing the inspection now?
I'll have to get with Mr. Killingsworth to find out. I can't answer that question.
So we're probably having to pay somebody outside if we don't have an inspector.
I'm not sure if Joe can do it. I think Joe can do inspections too.
Oh, okay.
Okay, on page 6, has instructional unit allocations, the way we do our staffing. If you look at 4-year-old VPK, you got a 1 with an asterisk. That asterisk means somebody teaching VPK can do that with a CDA license. And currently we have 4 at the central school. But it's based off of student allocation and class size reduction. Page 7 goes through the ESE allocations for your weighted funding. The key difference there, your self-contained classes will have a para with them based off of the needs of the students. And you have the funding in the 18 students per class, just like in the 22 and the 25, just like the high school, in the middle school grades. And you also have the speech numbers, and the speech ratios for speech, physical therapy, and occupational therapy. And at the bottom, you have your staffing for your ESE allocation for aides. And these are at the school sites. Page 8, for non-ESE allocation for instructional aides. You can read the paragraph there. It's based off of the use of SAI money or federal grant funds that's available to meet the needs of the school. Many of our paras right now are either paid out of SAI or Title I, or whatever's available that we can use that's legal, according to the grant. And page 9 is the custodian formula. Then the last page is the formula for calculating food service staff. Now, I can tell you, going back up to the custodians and the hiring freeze, I am going to have to ask to fill vacancies at the central school. We had a settlement, and currently there's 3 custodial vacancies that we're having to use subs for. But that will come at a later date. Depending on your questions, Madam Chairman, that's the proposed staffing allocation plan that we're going to present to you guys Monday, the 20th, for approval.
I would like, we talked, in a previous meeting, we talked about pre-K doing a half-day. Ms. Joseph, can you give us some information on that?
On the pre-K regular, going a half day, they're only required a half day. The other half day, we can charge them. But because of logistics, and we are not a hiring, we are not a collection agency, it would cost us more to charge the parents because a lot of parents would not pay. They would give us bogus checks. They just wouldn't pick up the kids. And so, yes, it's costing us to maintain them all day, but it's still less than the cost of keeping and sending the bill home and not getting paid and doing the collection.
And
Am
at
I
the same
right,
time,
Ms.?
and at the same time, Madam Chairman, we do have a better opportunity to ensure that those kids are school ready by the time they start kindergarten by having them all day.
I understand
And we
that.
are about education, and so
Right.
The cost, the benefits outweigh the cost.
Right.
And so we are recommending that we maintain what we're doing, maintain the pre-K all day and not charge them that additional fee.
Thank you.
All the VPKs should be run by CDAs, so I don't know.
Not all of them. At the outline, I know at Greenville, we do not have a CDA. And if we send them home,
But you have half ESC in there, so that should
Correct.
help pick up.
it's gonna pick
That
it
is
up.
correct.
I mean, that'll help pick up. I mean,
At Greenville, Lee, and Pinetta, we have a certified teacher. We have 2 certified teachers at Central School and 4 with CDAs.
but the 2 certified teachers, are they in total VPK classes or?
No, the 2 certified
No, they
teachers
do.
are ESC.
So from that, I mean, you would think that your pre-K ESC kids would help balance that out. I mean, where the possibility could be is if you had just total VPK, but if you have CDAs in there, I don't know that it still wouldn't be, you would still be within where you're not going in the hole with it, even if you keep them all day.
The CDA, without pulling up the salary schedule for CDA, is between $19,000 and $20,000 per CDA. Approximately.
But we are maximizing the use of all our personnel, and I think that's the best thing for us to do to keep them all day, because we really aren't, with the ESC students in there and
Right.
additional funding, we're not going in the hole that much.
I mean, I don't know, I mean, I know that's been talked about by the committee and all, but I don't know that numbers have ever been run to show us that we are going in the hole. I know that's been talked about, but I don't know that we are.
I don't
Ms.
think you'd be
Pam?
going in the hole much if you had a class of 18 VPK kids, even if you're only getting paid for half a day for them, and you have a CDA in there who doesn't make that much
Right.
more than an aide,
I mean,
than a
I agree
teacher's
with you.
aide, then
We are getting-
their salaries being covered by
It's
the
close to breaking
18
even.
kids at a half a day rate, even though they stay all day.
Pretty close.
Okay, we are We are wanting to, submit this plan for your approval on Monday night.
Is there any way, back to the proposed charter that's coming, is there any way we could have more definitive of what's happening with that?
I
prior to-
will get a report, someone will do a presentation to you on Monday night as far as much information we can gather, we will, and as possible that we can share. Someone will share it with you on Monday afternoon about, the charter school
Just,
and
I
bring
mean,
us up to speed.
I mean, I don't want to know exceptionalities, but just the number of kids you're talking is if it's going to be residential or,
It's residential.
but
So I can't tell you that.
again, are they going to educate them or are they going to send them to the school for us to?
They're
I
gonna
think that's
educate them.
part of the rationale behind the charter, so they could educate them. And yes, you as a board, because it's coming to Madison County, will have to approve the application.
So it's residential, you say, so
It's
there
gonna be
wouldn't be,
residential.
wouldn't be that
And
many.
their charter is for them to educate them.
Where are they gonna be, Sam? Just for curiosity, where's their location gonna be?
Ramsey.
Greenville
at the Twin
Hills.
Oaks,
Yeah.
at the small side of the street.
Okay.
If you've been out there, it's on the, as you're driving out, it's on the left.
Are students in the main campus?
No.
That
Rest of
part
it's
is closed right now. That main campus is closed.
See,
It's been
Twin Oaks
closed
lost their DJJ contract about 1.5 years ago. And when they lost it, obviously they're trying to find ways to pay for their property and pay for their stuff.
That main campus, it's been talking Greenville that they're gonna put a mattress factory or something out there. I have no details on that yet, but that's part of the infrastructure that Greenville, the town of Greenville is building in place.
But I would like as much information as we can have on that to make as much of an educated decision concerning that, because that is a big factor in decisions we make of the added students and the added potential it could be for that department.
And
Madam
hope-
Chairman, if you'd like, we could get you the revised, after we've already reviewed it, the first revision, we can get you a revised copy of their application and send it to email to each one of the board members. for your review.
Yes, if you'll do that, we'd appreciate it. And hopefully in the future, there'll be a little better communication between the staff and the school board. Any other questions for Mr. Stallnaker, Ms. Joseph?
Concerning this or something else?
Any questions?
I just have one question. Last meeting, we had a student come representing from the student body at the high school, and I see from the email from Ms. Wildgoose that it's going to be in the gym. Again, that's not really a school board decision, but I just hope that it's been taken into account that we were told that there's 130 students, I think, in the graduating class, and they're getting 10 tickets apiece. Is the capacity of the gym 1,300 people?
I don't know the capacity of the gym.
I mean, based,
It's like 1486 or something over there.
Okay.
I mean, based upon that being given out, I mean, and then she's saying that there's going to be 10 tickets for each student for overflow, and that's good and all, but, and again, this is not a board decision, that is a school-based decision, but as seeing that the student did come and present to the board, I just feel that we need to like comment on some way in that it is a school decision. I would have hoped that they would have listened to the students and used the gym for a backup if it were to rain. For years, we've been out on the field. We have been in. Last year, it was okay in, but there was a lot less students last year than there's going to be this year. And the issue about inside is it gets very noisy in that people really do not know how to maintain decorum. Not that they do outside, but outside it goes and it's not all in the gym. And I just, but again, I just felt that we needed to, that I needed to address his concerns because he did come and speak, and that is a school-based decision. But I would hope in the future that they would listen to the students and again, I know about the rain and all, but you do need a backup plan in case it were to, but I just think that we need to be respectful of him because he did take it upon himself to come, and he did a great job.
He did his homework, and we appreciate
Presenting.
young people coming up and up to the platform.
I have spoken with, Ms. Wildgoose concerning that, and I told her, I know I do not have the power to change it, I'm not changing it, but I was just concerned, and had she spoken with the students in response to that, and she said that was not her decision only, that she had met with a representative from the student body, and it was a group decision, but she gave me her reason for doing it. She said it was, when they did it on the field before, they had vandalism, and it was a safety issue, and those are some of the reasons, rationale for moving it to that. And they didn't have the equipment for the outside. Those are the things reasons she gave me for having it on the inside.
If they don't have the equipment, then they can't do it outside.
I mean, I just felt that we needed to respond to the
Yes,
student.
right.
I mean, because that was a lot for a high school student to come before the board and make that request, or.
It sure was. We appreciate him coming. Anything else?
I have one more thing.
Mr. Alford?
I just ask that, and again, I know this is not to Miss Joseph because she's new, but when things happen at school sites where people are, when things happen to instructors, when things happen to students, where people are having to go to the hospital or the law has to be called, we as a board should find out. We shouldn't find out on the street. We shouldn't find out on Facebook or with people calling us. We should find out from district staff of what's happened. Not that, again, just as a courtesy when people call us, it was a past practice for years that we were notified when things happen, and it's recently that, I mean, we're not. And I think that's important because, again, this is a small town, and when major things happen, it makes us look like we don't really know what's going on when we're out at Winn-Dixie or wherever, and we're confronted about something, and we don't know anything about it.
I know what you're
And
talking
I do
about, Mr.
appreciate
Alford.
Miss Bishop calling to tell
Yes.
us about the
Yeah.
last little
Yes.
incident.
And-
Thank you, Miss Joseph and Miss Bishop.
And we have been contacted about various things, but not all things. This is not Mrs. Bishop's responsibility, though. You know, this is, I know what you're referring to, because different people on the street will come up and tell us different things. I thought, what? That happened? It was major things.
Right.
And it's,
I want to speak to that.
Go ahead.
And I do know the incident you're referring to. I think personnel, because I think that happened my second day here, personnel was trying to get the protocol chain in place, and I was trying to find out my place. But the incident that happened yesterday, we did inform, but the prior incidents where I am guilty of that. I'm not
Well,
passing the buck.
But no, that's
And I do
not,
understand that's a legit concern.
that's not, by no means am I saying it's.
I know you didn't.
I mean, you were new at the job. The personnel should have been doing this all along, and it hasn't been done all along.
Oh, I can't answer
I mean,
that correct.
again, I'm not directing it to you. Back before Christmas, we had property stolen, and we heard about it on the street, and we should have been called and told that it had been stolen. So again, I'm just asking that if a teacher is assaulted, if a child is assaulted, if property is stolen, if the police have to come, if anything out of the ordinary where the police are called and it's going to warrant people knowing about it on the street, I feel that we need to know that just as a courtesy to us, that we're not blindsided with the information. But again, by no means am I saying that it was, but because
I
you
just
had,
needed to refer to that first incident
Right.
because I know I did not follow proper protocol, okay?
Well,
But that was after the fact.
it was your first day on
But
the job.
one-
Yeah, I was gonna
It was my second day on the job. But the second incident, the incident that happened this week, we did follow protocol. Most of y'all emails are like mine, not my emails, your voicemails is full, but we did call, and then when we didn't get through, we did send an email about the incident that happened this week. But last week, you didn't get it before it got in the streets.
No, you're doing fine, but I think what you're referring to, this probably does come from the superintendent, though, to let the people know, let the board members know.
Well, yeah.
Wouldn't you think? Now, you're just new on the job, we're not referring to
I
you.
mean, in the past, anything that major happened, we were notified by the superintendent concerning it, or the secretary, either Miss Bishop or Miss Dickey.
Yeah, I just think we are notified. I mean, I think the superintendent has a lot of responsibilities and duties, and they may not have time to try to make 5 calls and catch up with 5, that kind of thing. So, I mean, as long as we're notified, I think that's sufficient.
Well, I think that's what Mr. Alfred's saying, just in order, be notified, let's put it that way.
Yeah, and in the past, not all the times did the superintendent call, but either the superintendent or their designee did notify us. If people were, if things happened in the school that they felt that it warranted us knowing.
Do you think some things have been covered up that they didn't want us to know?
I can't speak to that, but I know things have happened we haven't been told. So, I can't speak to that.
All right, any other questions? Superintendent's remarks?
One thing I'm gonna ask you, on Monday, the Creative Arts graduation is at 6 o'clock, which is the same time as our board meeting. And, I'm wondering, would the board be, amenable to meeting at 4 o'clock on Monday?
How does the board feel about this?
That's
4 o'clock
fine
on
with me.
Monday. Ms. Williamson?
I can. Today's Wednesday, is there enough time to advertise it?
Ms. Bell?
That's fine.
Mr. Alfred?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Daniels?
Yeah, that's fine.
4
4
o'clock on
o'clock
Monday
will be
would
good.
work.
4 o'clock will work.
Okay, everybody's comfortable with
I
that?
think everyone's comfortable.
Okay,
Thank you, Mrs. Joseph.
okay.
Ms. Williamson?
No.
Ms. Bell? Mr. Alfred?
I want to congratulate the girls softball team on a successful season. The boys are still playing. Wish them well this Friday night in Williston. School's winding down. A lot of end of the year stuff going on with parties and fun days, and we wish everyone a great summer.
Madam Chairman, if I may, since you mentioned the boys' baseball team, I was at the game last night, and Logan Leopard got hammered pretty hard. He had to get carried off the field, but he's fine. He's been released to play. He just took a shot with a wild pitch.
Oh, dear. All right, Mr. Daniels?
Just wanted to congratulate, encourage the boys' baseball teams also at that game. Good game last night, and they're doing exceptionally well. And just want to keep them encouraged. And also just thankful for all of those who are receiving awards and everything. And this is the awards and graduation season, so I just wanted to commend everybody overall for doing a wonderful job. Teachers, staff, students, and all.
Thank you. Ms. Joseph?
One more reminder, Thursday afternoon at 4 o'clock, we're having our annual retirement reception at the Church of God. Is that correct, Becky?
Thank you, Ms.
Okay.
Joseph. Yes, it is a very busy time of the year. I had the privilege of attending 2 spring concerts, one at Madison County Creative Arts and the other at Madison County High School, and they were fabulous. I can't even describe it, absolutely wonderful. I also attended a talent show last Friday at Pinette Elementary, which was a wonderful event. After the concert last night, we went to the baseball game. I didn't stay for the whole thing because I didn't have a place to stand. I couldn't see it from where I was standing, but congratulations to the baseball Cowboys and the girls softball. Thank you very much. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
We have a motion by Mr. Alfred, second.
Second.
Second by Ms. Bell. Meeting is adjourned.